So I've made a really cool find here in the property right next to mine. And actually this is really cool. There's a whole field here that's just full of random plants, right? It's actually quite a lot of wild edibles here. Well, probably more things for medicinal uses and for making teas as opposed to eating per se. But look at this. There is lemon balm growing everywhere. I actually used some of this to make a nice little meal with chestnuts, and it was quite a flavor punch. And another nice little treasure is all of these. It's called mullein, and it makes a really nice tea. I thought this was like for diuretic purposes, but actually it is more for respiratory support and some other immunological stuff. It's quite fuzzy, and it makes an amazing tea. So I've been coming here almost every day and harvesting some for making tea about once or twice a day. There's daisies growing and more amazing stuff that I don't know what. Now our treasure is guarded by a big black dog and the property forbidden for us to enter. However, fortunately this tree does expand out into this side here as well, and guess what? Chestnuts, the real deal. Look at these guys. The way you identify them is lots of prickliness on the outside. They're could fill your palm's worth, and there's always a set of 2 like that. You'll see they're all in sets of 2. And it's good not to pick them until they are on the ground, freshly on the ground, because they do open very quickly. And those are the ones that are prime and ready to go. So those are the ones you want to harvest. You could pluck them from the tree, but then when you open them, you might find that they're not quite ripe. Or if you do want to pick them from the tree, you want to go for the ones that are more on the darker browner side. Those ones are kind of getting there. Not quite all the way yet. And another technique I just thought of is give the branches a shake. Just be careful so nothing falls on you because they will hurt. And when you shake, you might get lucky and the few will fall. That one fell. See? Look at that. And you'll notice that they're already opening like that. So it's perfect. And you want to be really careful when grabbing these. You probably want to wear gloves actually, because these sting really easy. They're like needles. Also wanted to mention, guys, that there's different varieties of chestnuts out there, and not all of them necessarily edible. So you do want to make sure that you identify them first by how they look on the exterior. And they have this sort of ovalish kind of look to them, and the eye on them is also fairly wide. There's these other varieties that are much circular. Those are not edible. Horse chestnuts are also different from these. They might be a little bigger and not having the characteristic that these guys do as being a little bit hairy. Usually a little bit hairy on the end tails, where the literally feeds the nutrients into the chestnut from the original husk. So do pay attention to those differences. Note also that there's different degrees of ripeness. This one here is not quite as ripe, which you can tell because it's got dashes of different patches of brown running through, and sometimes the patches, the brown, will come in. You'll see them in the initial stages. There's more white patches than there even are brown patches going across. And also the eye part is pretty much completely white. So this one's not nearly as ripe, and I have yet to, I do believe actually, I harvested just a few that were like this, and I left them in the bag that I have them drying in. That's another thing. You want to let them just dry a little bit, maybe for a day or a few days, and something like a paper bag, and that readies them also for consumption for later. Okay, so here is the stash that I collected today, and the way that I find these easiest and best to open so that you don't hurt yourself is using your feet. Just make sure you have some good shoes on, and then you want to place these so that the side that's opening, which is the bottom side, not the top where the hinges to the tree, but right here you'll see that there's a little quadrant kind of separation. So you can literally just press your feet in between that and then wedge it open as you apply a little bit of pressure, being gentle not to crush anything. And there you go. Now, you probably want to have a spoon handy or something so that you can scoop them out without getting your hands right into those needles. And there you go. Every chestnut has 3 chestnuts. And you always want to have a little bit of a look at them because sometimes bugs do get inside. So this one here, you can actually, there's a hole in there and these little residues. So that means that bugs already made their way inside that. So that one's no good. And I'm going to toss it. So I usually just give them a bit of a cleanup because you can see that there's might be little bugs trying to get their way in. And you can just whisk them off. And that's it. This is my stash so far from what I've harvested these last 2 days. And it's a nice bunch. Easily probably a kilogram here already. And there's so much more in that tree. So yeah, I showed you guys before actually in another video of how to roast the chestnuts in the oven, which requires you to make an incision. And I actually learned that you can also make like an X incision as opposed to just a single slice. And then when you make this X, it makes it easier when you open them to actually just literally wedge it open if you find that they can be too difficult to just to open all the way with the inner skin also coming out. But another way they can do it as well, it's really easy, is just take the chestnut and you can, using a cutting board and a good chef's knife, you can literally just cut this in half vertically, and then you can boil them, and they boil really nicely like that, and you can actually just pop them right out after they're done boiling. You can also boil them whole. It'll probably take a little bit longer, and then it might be a little more tedious for taking the outer hulls off. But I do find, so far when I've experimented with it, just the cutting in half approach works really good. So yeah, right now it's definitely the season for chestnuts. It's a window of about 3 months up until about December, if you're lucky. And yeah, I have to say that Portuguese chestnuts, these are coming right from the source and the grounds right where I have my parents have their home in Portugal, and they are amazing. So if you ever get a chance, definitely grab them, and you can even roast them over a campfire. It's so versatile. So good survival food. Anyways, yeah.